The company that taught the modern world to fly commercial distances did not begin with passenger comfort in mind, but with military contracts and mail routes. They engineered aircraft to conquer oceans and shrink continents. Yet, their pursuit of aerodynamic perfection continually collided with the raw physics of economic survival. The first aircraft bearing the company name sought to conquer the waterways of the Pacific Northwest. Spanning 52 feet and weighing 2,800 pounds, the wood and linen airframe struggled to reach 75 miles per hour. Despite seeking to alter military history, the Navy rejected it outright. It was designed for combat. It is remembered for hauling mail. This biplane established that moving human beings could supplement the lucrative business of hauling government paper. Powered by a 420-horsepower radial engine, it lifted 1,200 pounds of mail and 2 passengers. Shoving humans into unheated cabins proved passenger travel was possible across military engineering history. History remembered the commercial airline. The passengers remembered freezing. The first modern airliner arrived to fundamentally rewrite the baseline rules for every aircraft ever built afterward. The all-metal monoplane cruised at 189 miles per hour, carrying 10 passengers across 485 miles. However, restricting initial sales to a single airline forced desperate competitors elsewhere. The Model 247 solved modern air travel. It created the DC-3. The ultimate flying boat was conceived to offer transoceanic luxury, rivaling the finest ocean liners in naval history. Spanning 152 feet, it hurled 82,000 pounds across 3,600 miles. World War II erupted, transforming these palaces into drafted transports ferrying critical personnel, altering military aircraft history. They ordered civilian luxury. They got global military logistics. Adapted directly from heavy bomber architecture, this transport brought pressurized comfort to post-war routes. Carrying up to 114 passengers, it featured a 14-berth lounge and cruised at 301 miles per hour. Yet, its monstrous radial engines demanded constant mid-air maintenance from flight engineers. On paper, an elegant airborne hotel. In practice, a flying maintenance crisis. The civilian jet age did not truly begin until this swept-wing behemoth definitively rendered piston airliners obsolete. 4 turbojet engines generated 17,000 pounds of thrust each, carrying 181 passengers exactly 4,600 miles, costing more to develop than almost every warship ever built at the time. Its immense noise created entirely new global infrastructure challenges. It conquered the Atlantic. It deafened the residential neighborhoods below. Designed for short regional runways, this rugged trijet democratized commercial aviation. Featuring 3 rear-mounted turbofans, it needed just 4,800 feet to lift its 195,000-pound frame. It succeeded brilliantly everywhere. Yet, its signature rear air stairs inadvertently introduced a massive airborne vulnerability. The 727 solved regional airport access. It created the infamous hijacker problem. The best-selling airliner in history nearly died in infancy due to fierce market saturation. The Series 100 design seated 115 passengers and flew just 1,700 miles. Looking like footage from a war documentary, its foreign orders solely sustained the struggling assembly line. Boeing initially wanted immediate domestic dominance. The open market had other plans. The legendary Queen of the Skies was engineered as a temporary passenger stopgap before supersonic transports dominated. Spanning 225 feet, the double-decker moved 416 passengers across 5,300 miles. It gambled the company on mass transit economics. When supersonic travel failed, this oversized freighter accidentally ruled global aviation forever. 1,574 built, 119 lost. The math tells the rest. The twin-engine widebody arrived to challenge the entrenched regulatory belief that oceans required 4 engines to cross safely. Operating with 2 massive high-bypass turbofans, it carried 269 passengers while burning 30% less fuel. By proving engine reliability had eclipsed legacy safety rules, it unlocked direct transatlantic routes. It bypassed traditional airline hubs. It dismantled the 4-engine monopoly. Conceived alongside the 767, this slender twin-engine jet was meant to quietly replace aging narrowbodies, thrusting 255 passengers skyward with 43,000 pounds of thrust per engine. It climbed like a fighter jet. While accountants praised its fuel efficiency, pilots revered its sheer, overpowering thrust margins. History remembered its operational versatility. The crews remembered the rocket-like ascents. The first airliner entirely designed on computers sought to bridge the capacity gap between wide-body twins and jumbos. Featuring two 90,000-pound thrust engines, it hauled 396 passengers over 8,500 miles. It effectively murdered the market for any four-engine aircraft that followed. It was designed to bridge a gap. It is remembered for destroying one. Inherited during a massive corporate merger, this short-haul jet was actually a rebranded McDonnell Douglas design in disguise. Seating 117 passengers, its two rear-mounted engines propelled it up to 1,600 miles. Airlines initially resisted the orphaned platform, but eventually praised its supreme reliability on rapid turnaround routes. They ordered a Boeing. They got a Douglas. Promising unprecedented efficiency through carbon composite construction, this jet aimed to rewrite the economics of long-haul travel. Costing $32 billion to develop, it carried 242 passengers over 7,300 miles. Yet, severe battery fires and supply chain chaos grounded the global fleet shortly after launch. On paper, an engineering triumph. In practice, a logistical nightmare. Desperate to counter a more fuel-efficient European rival, engineers strapped massive new engines onto an airframe from 1967. Accommodating 210 passengers with a range of 4,000 miles, it required hidden software to prevent aerodynamic stalls. That software fatally failed twice, killing 346 people. Boeing wanted a cheap upgrade. The engineering limits had other plans. The company's first true commercial design was a humble flying boat built to establish an international postal service. Powered by a single 400-horsepower engine, it carried one pilot and 1,000 pounds of cargo over 400 miles. While intended to pioneer new passenger routes, its primary achievement became monotonously shuttling mail between Seattle and Victoria. They ordered a passenger pioneer. They got a maritime postman. America's first purpose-built passenger biplane sought to bring Pullman-style luxury to the unforgiving transcontinental skies. 3 radial engines generating 410 horsepower each lifted 18 passengers into a heated, leather-trimmed cabin. While passengers enjoyed hot coffee and reading lamps, the pilots sat entirely exposed in an open cockpit, battling freezing rain and snow. History remembered the luxurious cabin. The crews remembered the frostbite. To dominate the transcontinental airmail routes, engineers stripped away all passenger accommodations for pure, unadulterated cargo efficiency. A massive 525-horsepower radial engine allowed it to haul 1,000 pounds of mail, exactly 520 miles. By flying continuously day and night, it proved that dedicated air freight could financially outperform mixed passenger services. On paper, a stripped-down biplane. In practice, the blueprint for overnight shipping. Attempting to revive the flying boat concept for private owners, this 4-seat aircraft deliberately targeted wealthy flying enthusiasts. A single 410-horsepower engine pushed the mahogany-hulled craft to 115 miles per hour over 250 miles. Entering the market just as the global financial system collapsed, the affluent buyers vanished overnight, leaving the production line dead. Boeing wanted a billionaire's plaything. The economy had other plans. The first radical departure from fabric biplanes featured a smooth, all-metal monoplane wing and fully retractable landing gear. It cruised at 158 miles per hour, theoretically hauling 6 passengers and 750 pounds of mail. However, its advanced aerodynamic frame was severely crippled by the lack of a variable pitch propeller to actually handle the revolutionary speeds. It was designed to revolutionize flight. It is remembered for waiting for better propellers. Pressurized cabins finally allowed commercial flights to soar far above the turbulent weather systems that tortured early passengers. Adapting the wings of a heavy bomber, it carried 33 passengers at 220 miles per hour above 20,000 feet. The onset of global conflict immediately halted civilian production, transforming the only 10 built into VIP military transports. 10 built, 10 drafted. The math tells the rest. Created as a lighter, shorter variant of the flagship jetliner, this model deliberately targeted runways too small for heavy international flights. Stripped of structural weight, it carried 167 passengers over 3,300 miles using modified wing aerodynamics. Instead of merely serving minor cities, its incredible power-to-weight ratio made it a favorite for extreme high-altitude mountain airports. The 720 solved short runways. It created a mountain-climbing jet. Desperate to steal ultra-long-range routes from competitors, engineers aggressively chopped 47 feet off their legendary jumbo jet. Retaining 4 massive engines, it hauled 276 passengers, an astonishing 7,600 miles without refueling. The heavy abbreviated airframe ultimately proved disastrously uneconomical compared to emerging twin-engine alternatives, resulting in a tiny production run before cancellation. A stubby intercontinental marvel, a profound financial failure. Facing market obsolescence, the aging narrowbody required massive new turbofan engines to remain economically viable against European competitors. Because the jet sat incredibly low to the ground, engineers simply flattened the bottom of the 22,000-pound thrust engines. This forced aerodynamic compromise successfully revitalized the program, enabling millions of cheap regional flights globally. Boeing wanted an easy engine swap. The physics of ground clearance had other plans. Completely redesigned under the skin to battle fierce competition, this massive upgrade featured entirely new wings and glass cockpits. Carrying 189 passengers over 3,000 miles, it utilized 27,000 pounds of thrust per engine. While passengers enjoyed quieter cabins, pilots were forced to memorize a bizarre mix of modern screens and 1960s overhead switches. History remembered a modern airliner. The crews remembered the archaic toggle switches. Stretched to finally replace aging trajects, this extended twin-engine widebody aimed directly at the highly lucrative transatlantic market. Measuring 200 feet long, it transported 296 passengers over 6,400 miles. Despite its newly raked wingtips and digital cockpit, airlines overwhelmingly chose the slightly more efficient European alternative instead. They ordered a market killer. They got an ignored middle child. The longest single-aisle twinjet ever constructed immediately earned the nickname of the flying pencil due to its absurd proportions. Measuring 178 feet, it squeezed 295 passengers aboard while flying 3,900 miles. Its incredible length turned boarding and deplaning into agonizingly slow processes, frustrating airlines despite its unmatched fuel economics. The 757-300 solved capacity. It created a boarding nightmare. Designed specifically to conquer the brutal headwinds between Australia and the United States, this heavy jumbo-packed auxiliary fuel tanks. Strengthening the landing gear allowed it to lift 910,000 pounds, carrying 416 passengers over 8,000 miles. Only a single Australian airline ever purchased the passenger variant, proving the era of the 4-engine longhauler was already dead. On paper, the ultimate ocean crosser. In practice, the final gasp of the jumbo jet. The world's longest-range commercial airliner was meticulously engineered to connect any 2 cities on Earth without a layover. Carrying massive auxiliary fuel tanks, it hurled 317 passengers, an unprecedented 9,800 miles. It successfully connected continents directly, finally rendering traditional airline hub and spoke models completely obsolete for premium business routes. It was designed to fly further. It is remembered for breaking the hub system. To transport massive composite wings from global suppliers, engineers violently sliced open and permanently expanded a standard jumbo jet. Featuring a swinging tail door, it swallowed 65,000 cubic feet of cargo, operating purely for internal logistics. While it successfully saved the delayed carbon fiber jet program, it remained one of the most aerodynamically hideous machines ever flown, a logistical lifesaver, an aesthetic tragedy. The final iteration of the legendary jumbo stretched the fuselage and incorporated carbon fiber engine technology to fight off European superjumbos. Measuring 250 feet, it transported 467 passengers over 8,900 miles. Arriving to a market that no longer wanted four-engine behemoths, passenger sales flatlined entirely, while freighters barely kept production alive. 155 built, 0 subsequent passenger orders. The math tells the rest. Taking standard commercial airframes directly off the line, engineers stripped out hundreds of seats to create flying palaces for billionaires. Outfitted with auxiliary fuel tanks and showers, it carried 18 passengers over 7,000 miles in complete luxury. It fundamentally shifted corporate travel, forcing private jet manufacturers to massively scale up their designs to compete. Boeing wanted a niche VIP market. The private jet industry had other plans. America's government-funded answer to supersonic commercial flight promised to blast passengers across oceans at 3 times the speed of sound. Designed to carry 277 passengers, its massive swing wings aimed for Mach 2.7 across 4,000 miles. Crippled by insurmountable fuel costs, environmental protests over sonic booms, and massive budget overruns, the government completely canceled the project. They ordered the future of flight. They got a wooden mock-up in a museum. Before committing to fuel efficiency, engineers proposed a radical delta-wing jet that would fly just below the speed of sound. Featuring rear-mounted engines and a canard wing, it promised to fly 250 passengers at Mach 0.98. The September 11th attacks collapsed airline budgets, forcing the manufacturer to abandon speed entirely in favor of supreme fuel efficiency. On paper, a time-saving revolution. In practice, a casualty of a changed world. The largest twin-engine jet ever designed features massive folding wingtips just to physically fit into standard international airport gates. Powered by colossal 105,000-pound thrust engines, it theoretically hauls 426 passengers over 8,300 miles. Plagued by years of brutal certification delays and engine issues, it remains trapped in endless testing while the industry awaits its arrival. It was designed to dominate the next decade. It is remembered for never leaving the test phase.